Today's Korean news. A prototype of the Korean-style fighter KF-21, which is being developed with domestic technology, succeeded in its first flight test on the 19th. According to the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, the KF-21 took off from the runway of the Air Force's 3rd Training Wing in Sachin, Gyeongnam, and flew over the area for about 34 minutes before landing. In the test flight, the KF-21 did not reach supersonic speed and flew only at a speed of about 400 km per hour, 200 knots, which is the level of a light aircraft. Both takeoff and landing of the aircraft proceeded normally, and the test flight pilot of the 52nd Test and Evaluation Squadron of the Air Force, Major A.H.N. Jun Hye-in, a member of the Korean-style fighter integrated test team, completed the first flight successfully by checking the safety of the aircraft. The DAPA plans to expand the flight area through approximately 2,000 KF-21 flight tests in the future, and to check various performances in air-to-air armament suitability, etc., and end the development in 2026. With the success of the flight test, Korea is one step closer to becoming the world's 8th supersonic fighter development country, following the United States, Russia, China, Japan, France, Sweden, and the European consortium Britain, Germany, Italy and Spain. It was later confirmed that a public official who caused a scandal by stealing an air conditioner installed in a public toilet was at risk of arrest for assaulting a bus driver and a police officer in the past. According to the Gangseo police station in Seoul on the 19th, it was reported that a civil servant A from Sacho City Hall assaulted the bus driver around 11 a.m. on the 11th. He is also accused of assaulting a police officer who received a report and was dispatched to the scene. At that time, the police applied for an arrest warrant for Mr. However, the court rejected A's arrest warrant. He judged that there was no fear of destroying evidence or escaping. As a result, A was released from detention. Prior to this, on the 30th of last month, Mr. A was investigated for special theft of stealing an air conditioner and outdoor unit owned by the Goseonggun office and running away from a public toilet near the Live Fish Center in Jukwangmyeon, Goseonggun, along with Mr. B, another public official. At that time, the police, who received a report from the fishing village, analyzed the CCTV nearby and confirmed that Mr. After that, Mr. A's absurd excuse added to the outrage. Contrary to the statement of the motive of the crime, I tried to bring it to an elderly person living alone. The air conditioner that Mr. A stole was installed in his wife's house. It was investigated that Mr. A's wife had both his parents alive and that he was not from the vulnerable class. A's assault case occurred during the period of the investigation. Gangseo Police Station and Goseong Police Station, which are investigating Mr. A's assault case and theft case, respectively, plan to send the cases to the prosecution soon. Currently, Mr. A and Mr. B have been released from their positions by the city of Sacho. Vietnamese authorities are pushing for a plan to ban boarding of passengers who are rude. On the 19th, local media VN Express reported that the Vietnam Aviation Administration had recently requested each airline to collect a list of bad passengers. This is a measure to restrict their use of passenger planes in the future, and the Vietnam Aviation Administration said, passengers who intentionally violate flight rules should be treated strictly. It also emphasized that each airport should prevent inattentive passengers from engaging in safety-threatening behaviors and strengthen monitoring of runways and restricted areas. Recently, there have been frequent cases of ignoring regulations in Vietnam airports and airliners, such as a passenger on a passenger plane being stopped by a flight attendant while holding a mobile phone to the window to take a cloud photo. In addition, a woman danced on the runway of Phu Quoc Airport without permission to upload a video on TikTok. Swing, a domestic shared electric kickboard startup, recently entered Japan. It is the first case among domestic personal mobility startups to launch overseas services. The industry is of the view that compared to Korea, which is suffering from regulations, micromobility is common in Japan and the market potential is high as the regulations on electric kickboards are also being relaxed. Japan recently deleted the regulations on helmets and licenses for electric scooters while announcing amendments to the Road Traffic Act. On the other hand, the domestic electric kickboard industry is entering a cooling phase, with cases of withdrawing and changing businesses one after another. In September of last year, German kickboard company Wind withdrew from the Korean market, and in December of the same year, Singaporean company Neuron Mobility stopped its business. Last month, Lime, the global #1 company, withdrew from the Korean market. In particular, it is the position that the system needs to be improved in relation to the kickboard collection regulation. The towing and storage fees amount to 2,620.4 million won. Considering that the one-time usage fee is about 1,000 won, it is equivalent to 2.62 million uses of the kickboard. This means that each company paid more than 500 million won in towing and storage fees per year. Shared kickboard operators are concerned about target traction by the class giant. The side effect of collecting kickboards according to the discretion of the tow company is that even electric kickboards in an ambiguous location are being collected indiscriminately. It is pointed out that the fine for not wearing a helmet is also against equity. This is because electric bicycles, a similar means of short-distance transportation, are required to wear hard hats under the current law, but are not subject to fines. Singapore is the only country that makes it compulsory for adults to wear helmets abroad. In the US, Canada, and Germany, helmet wearing is only at the recommended level. In France and Germany, electric scooters can be ridden without a bicycle license. In Japan, the mandatory use of helmets and license provisions for adults will be deleted within 2 years with this amendment to the law. A plastic bag containing the person who caused the stench to vibrate was found in the dressing room of a new apartment building in Uighurs, Gyeonggi Province. Residents are complaining that they did not receive proper compensation and after-sales service from the construction company. According to Yonhap News, Mr. A, who moved into the apartment in May last year, felt a bad stench from the wall of the master's dressing room and filed a defect request to the after-sales service department of the construction company on the 29th of the same month. On the 2nd, an official from a construction company visited and looked around the house, including plumbing, floors, walls, and ceilings, and found 3 plastic bags with human waste in the upper space, including the ceiling of the dressing room. As soon as the ceiling light was removed, the room was filled with a strong stench from the hole, but the construction company official said that they took the bag and left so quickly that they could not even take a picture. Another resident, C, who lives next door after seeing a related article posted by Mr. A to the resident's cafe before requesting a defect, also felt a stench in the dressing room on the 8th. Mr. C's wife, who is 5 months pregnant, complained of a headache due to the stress caused by the odor, and she was hospitalized the day before. The construction company believes that it is highly likely that the workers hid human waste during the interior finishing work of the apartment. A and C are more angry at the construction company's response after a plastic bag containing human waste was found. They didn't even get a proper apology, and they didn't even respond to requests to replace the smelly ceiling and wall plasterboards and to call in a professional company to do the deodorization work. Mr. A said, "It has already been 17 days since the human waste bag was discovered, but the construction company is saying that removing the wallpaper and ceiling, sterilizing it and spraying liquid detergent is deodorizing work. It is used by diluting an alkaline cleaner with water, but the smell is still so strong that the construction company did it, so it gave me a headache." In response, the construction company said, "We are sorry that the tenants suffered because of the poor management of the workers," but said, "It is difficult to accept the cost of the estimate for the hijacking of a specialized company requested by the tenant during the damage compensation process. We plan to compensate the tenants for damages through consultations as faithfully as possible," he added. When the parents of the child who ran away after urinating in the hallway of the building were contacted, the story was told that they again spit out abusive language and showed a hostile attitude. On the 19th, in an online community, an article titled "I Heard a Crazy X Sound from Non-Concept Elementary School Parents" was posted. Writer A, complaining of injustice, said, "I am a victim, and I do not know why I should be cursed." According to the article, Mr. A received a call from the building manager on the 16th that the office wall seemed to be leaking and went to work. Upon arrival and checking, what he thought was water was urine, and Mr. A, who was embarrassed, looked at the CCTV. There was a scene in which a boy came out of the restaurant and peed on the wall of Mr. A's office, then paused for a while and then rushed back to the restaurant. Ms. A thought that this was not the first time the child had acted, so she decided that she should inform her parents. She saw the school logo on the children's clothes and contacted the academy, and about an hour later, she was able to talk to the child's father. Person A informed the child's father, the child went to urinate on the office wall. However, he said that he only answered yes and said nothing else. At this, Mr. A said, "Do you have anything to say to me, isn't it only you?" After that, the child's father said that he started swearing and swearing. He said that he hung up the phone after pouring out harsh words to Mr. A, such as "XXX, I don't have to go and clean it. Crazy X. I'll just wait for you." Mr. A called again to record the call, but the man cursed once again not to call and hung up. Mr. A called one more time, but he said he did not answer. Person A said, "I think I looked easy because I am a woman. Is it wrong to expect parents to discipline a wrong child?" He added, "He said he would come, but he hasn't come yet and there is no contact." Netizens who saw the article commented, "When you plant beans, beans grow, when you plant red beans grow, children or adults alike, children can make mistakes when they are in a hurry, so why do parents? It is possible to file a civil lawsuit for damage, so please keep the video evidence and send the proof." KEPCO, which is expected to lose 30 trillion won this year in the aftermath of the Moon Jae-in government's nuclear phase-out policy, will make an additional contribution of 30.7 billion won to the Korea Energy Institute of Technology, which opened in March. KEPCO has already contributed 120 billion won to KEPCO. As KEPCO has been selected as a financial risk institution and is in the process of asset sales and restructuring, it is also predicted that it will be difficult to provide additional funds to KEPCO in the future. According to the energy industry on the 20th, KEPCO held a board meeting on the 15th and decided to contribute 30.7 billion won in the name of KEPCO's construction and operating costs. KEPCO explained that it decided to participate for the purpose of placing an order for construction of major facilities on the KEPCO campus and operating the school this year. KEPCO previously contributed 60 billion won in 2019 and 64.5 billion won last year to KEPCO. It is reported that KEPCO requested a power generation subsidiary to share a portion of this contribution. KEPCO is expected to need 1.6 trillion won in capital by 2031, including facility investment and operating costs. Of this, about 1 trillion won will be borne by KEPCO. Even if 167 billion won in the cost of the land provided free of charge is subtracted, about 880 billion won must be invested by KEPCO. The government and Jeollanam-do and Najo City agreed to bear the rest of the funds, but it is predicted that it would be unreasonable to spend tens of billions of won each year due to the low level of financial independence of Jeollanam-do and Najo Si. If local government contributions are reduced, KEPCO's burden will increase. KEPCO also cannot afford to support KEPCO. KEPCO is expected to record a deficit of 30 trillion won this year. In the first quarter of this year, it posted an operating loss of 7.78 trillion won, and the market is predicting a loss of up to 6.2 trillion won in the second quarter. Accordingly, KEPCO raised the fuel cost adjusted unit price by 5.01 per kilowatt hour in the third quarter, and predicted an increase of 4.91 per kilowatt hour in October. The government has designated KEPCO as a financial risk institution and is demanding self-rescue efforts such as asset sale and restructuring. KEPCO must formulate a 5-year fiscal consolidation plan within this month and submit it to the government. Specifically, the contents of the sale of assets irrelevant to the intrinsic function of public institutions or assets for welfare benefits, the contents of restructuring for businesses with low profitability or accumulated losses, and the management of reorganization of organizations with overlapping personnel include efficiency improvement in the fiscal consolidation plan. Implementation performance is reviewed on a semi-annual basis. As KEPCO's large-scale deficit is expected, concerns are raised about whether KEPCO will continue to support KEPCO. The Yoon Suk-yeol government has not yet established a specific financial support plan for KEPCO. The Moon Jae-in government and the Democratic Party of Korea revised the enforcement decree of the Electricity Business Act to support and cover the cost of establishing and operating KEPCO with the Electric Power Industry Infrastructure Fund in 2020. The Electric Power Industry Infrastructure Fund is a fund created by deducting 3.7% of the electricity bill paid by the public, and has the character of a quasi-tax. There is a possibility that the Yoon Suk-yeol government will either disallow the Electric Power Industry Infrastructure Fund's contribution to KEPCO Technical University or reenact the enforcement ordinance. It takes nearly 11 months for young people to find their first job after graduation. The average tenure at the first job was only 1.5 years. According to the results of the May 2022 Supplemental Survey on Economic Activity Survey for Youth released by the National Statistical Office on the 19th, it took an average of 10.8 months for young people aged 15 to 29 to enter their first job after graduating or dropping out of school. Compared to last year, the period required for the first job increased by 0.7 months. The time it takes to graduate is also getting longer. The average duration of graduation for young college graduates was 4 years and 3.7 months, an increase of 0.3 months from the same month of the previous year. For those who graduated from a 4-year university, the average length of time required to graduate was 5 years and 1.7 months, an increase of 0.1 months during the same period. The duration of the first job tenure was 1 year and 7 months. Although it increased by 0.6 months compared to last year, it is still short. 65.6% of young people quit their first job after graduation, and the most common reason for quitting was dissatisfaction with working conditions, such as remuneration and working hours, at 45.1%. The highest monthly salary at their first job was between 1.5 million won and 2 million won, 36.6%, 28.4% of those earning between 2 million won and 3 million won per month, and 31.3% of those earning less than 1.5 million won. Only 3.7% of those with a starting salary of 3 million won or more. The number of economically inactive young people was 4.17 million, down 318,000 from last year. Of these, only 16.9% were preparing for the employment test. In the field of preparation for the employment test, 29.9% of general public officials, 23.8% of general companies, and 18.7% of technical qualifications and others were in the order. The proportion of preparations for general public officials fell from 32.4% last year to 29.9%, but the proportion of preparations for general corporations, public announcements, and professional positions, and media and public corporations increased. In recent years, the competition rate for civil service exams has continued to decline. According to the Ministry of Personnel Management and Innovation, the competition rate for the 9th grade civil service exam this year was 29.2 to 1, the lowest since 1992. The competition rate for the 7th grade civil service exam was 42.7 to 1, the lowest level since 1970. As the cost of vacation is skyrocketing due to soaring prices, the worries of citizens ahead of summer vacation are deepening. A new word called vaccination, which is a combination of vacation, meaning vacation, and inflation, which rises prices, has even appeared and is being talked about. As transportation costs, as well as accommodation and tourism costs, have risen overall, the recent trend in demand for thrifty travel products is also striking. According to the Seoul Economic Daily on the 19th, vacation costs have risen by 20 to 30% from the original estimate due to inflation, and travelers who are about to go on vacation are looking for a trick. Amid rising prices, more and more tourists are turning their eyes to relatively cheap overseas destinations such as Southeast Asia. According to travel industry officials, demand is steadily increasing due to the expansion of air supply in Southeast Asia and lower airfare. The problem is that the polarization in summer vacation is becoming more pronounced as vacation expenses rise. According to Statistics Korea, the International Airfare Consumer Price Index in June was 133.41, up 22% in a year. Domestic group travel expenses also recorded 127.1, a 31% increase from the previous year. Condominium usage fees and hotel lodging fees also increased by 6% compared to the same period last year. As most of the indices related to travel expenses, such as resort fees and lodging fees, continue to rise, so-called vacation reporters who give up vacation altogether are appearing one after another. On the other hand, the high-income group is focusing on high-priced products such as Europe. As soaring prices lead to higher vacation costs, the polarization in summer vacation is exacerbated. Samsung Electronics and Apple have put their lives on the line to strengthen smartphone security. As smartphones take over functions such as wallets, IDs, and keys, the importance of security is growing. Samsung Electronics announced on the 20th that it has recently upgraded the security measures of the Knox Vault, a security solution installed on the Galaxy S2 1x1 level. By combining a secure processor with a new secure memory chip, the most important information, such as pins, passwords, biometrics, digital certificates, and security keys, is isolated and secure in a separate location. For example, if it detects a security risk, Knox locks sensitive services such as Samsung Pay and Samsung Pass so that only users can check their own data. The Knox Bolt, which has strengthened security measures, is also expected to be installed in the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and Z Flip 4, which will be released next month. Samsung Electronics is scheduled to hold a shipment ceremony for 3nm Semiconductor products at its Weiziong plant on the 25th. Samsung Electronics will unveil its 3 nano product for the first time through this event. Earlier, when the 7 nano product was unveiled for the first time in 2019, Samsung Electronics introduced the smartphone application processor AP chip to be installed in the Galaxy series. Earlier, on the 30th of last month, Samsung Electronics said that it produced the first system semiconductor for high-performance computing in the 3 nano process, and announced that it will expand the application of the 3 nano process to mobile system-on-chips. The 3 nano process is the most advanced technology among the current semiconductor manufacturing processes. Samsung Electronics surpassed TSMC in ultrafine processing technology by announcing the mass production of Gate-All-Around 3nm last month. Compared to the existing 5 nano FinFET process, Samsung Electronics 3nm Gate-All-Around first-generation process can reduce power by 45% and improve performance by 23%. The Gate-All-Around second-generation process, scheduled to be introduced next year, is expected to reduce power by 50% and improve performance by 30%. With Samsung Electronics 3nm mass production, competition for leadership in the global foundry market is expected to intensify. According to market researcher Omdia, 3nm factory semiconductors will start generating sales this year, surpassing 5nm process sales by 2024, and growing at an average annual rate of 85% until 2025. The increase rate of the 7 nano process is 0.1%, and the increase rate of the 5 nano process is only 7.5%. In fact, it is said that only semiconductor companies with ultrafine process technology of 3nm or less can survive. Uighur and Xinyan Bank's large foreign exchange transactions are unusual. The Financial Supervisory Service extended the inspection period and confirmed that some of the transaction amount was related to the domestic virtual asset exchange. The FSS is strengthening the sharing of information with the prosecution while the possibility of large-scale funds being used as a window for money laundering through the illegal foreign exchange transaction exchange is being raised. According to the financial industry on the 20th, the Financial Supervisory Service confirmed that some of the transaction amount was related to the domestic virtual asset exchange during an occasional inspection of large-scale foreign exchange transactions that occurred in succession at Uighur Bank and Xinyan Bank last month. The amount of abnormal foreign exchange transactions identified so far alone reached 800 billion won for Uighur Bank and 1 trillion won for Xinyan Bank. The inspection period of the Financial Supervisory Service, which was originally scheduled for 2 weeks, is now being conducted for nearly a month. The FSS is currently intensively examining accounts suspected of illegal foreign exchange transactions, and is checking whether employees have violated the Anti-Money Laundering Act and the Foreign Exchange Transactions Act. Some in the financial world point out that the two banks may have been used as a financing channel for the Wanchaki forces. Currency exchange refers to the act of exchanging money into another country's currency without going through a foreign exchange bank. In formal foreign exchange transactions, you have to pay a currency exchange fee and disclose the source of the funds. As it has been confirmed that some of the funds are related to virtual asset exchanges, it is impossible to rule out the possibility that they may have been misused for currency exchange using the so-called kimchi premium, which is traded more expensively in Korea. It is a scenario in which virtual assets purchased abroad are sold at a higher price on a domestic exchange, and then the foreign exchange forces remittance through a bank to realize the profit from the transaction. It seems inevitable that Uighur Bank and Xinyan Bank will face strong sanctions if allegations of foreign exchange irregularities are found to be true. Earlier, in late May, the financial authorities imposed a fine of 50 million won and a suspension of business for 4 months against Hana Bank for violating the Foreign Exchange Transactions Act. Although there have been cases where foreign banks have been suspended, it is the first time that a business suspension has been imposed on a domestic bank. Recently, the Financial Supervisory Service announced that it would come up with a plan to improve the internal control system to prevent successive embezzlement accidents in the financial sector. Lee Bok-hyeon, head of the Financial Supervisory Service, said, "In the financial industry, customer trust is life, so it is necessary to be more vigilant about financial accidents." Recently, in an online community where retirees gather, living with only a pension has become a hot topic. There has been a heated debate among retirees over whether they can live in the age of 100 with only a pension in Korea without any other income. Retired person A complained, "It seemed enough during active duty, but I feel that I am lacking in old age due to the sharp rise in prices. I receive a pension early and receive 1.8 million won each, so I eat enough to live." The juniors who watched the exchanging opinions of the retired seniors became complicated. Prospective retirees said, "I am afraid that when I retire, I will spend more on health insurance, taxes, travel expenses, etc. than I do now. The expected national pension for married couples is 400 or more per month, but they also pay additional personal pensions in preparation for pension reform or inflation. I am doing it," and so forth. Looking at the statistics alone, it is still difficult in Korea to live in old age with only public pensions. According to the National Pension Service, as of March last year, the average pension received by national pension recipients was 575,000 won per month. This year, the median income of a single-person household is 1,94,812 won. In Japan, which entered a super-aged society before Korea, more than 40 million elderly people are receiving public pensions. It is a structure in which the national tax is added to the premium paid by the 67 million active duty households. The average monthly pension for single-income couples introduced by the Japanese government is 220,000 yen or about 2.1 million won. This is a case where the husband worked at an average earning job and paid insurance premiums for 40 years, and the wife of a full-time housewife also finished paying the basic insurance premium for the national pension. It is hard to imagine in Korea, but half of the elderly in Japan are living on pensions. According to a 2019 survey by the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare, 48.4% of senior citizens aged 65 and over were living with only public pensions, and 60% of the average income of the older generation was from public pensions. An analysis showed that apartment prices in Seoul have risen by an average of 940 million won per household since 2004. The Citizens Coalition for Economic Justice held a press conference at the Gyeongsilyeon Auditorium in Dongseungdong, Jongno-gu, Seoul on the 19th and announced the results of analyzing the price fluctuations of 124,000 households in 75 apartment complexes in Seoul from January 2004 to May. Based on KB real estate market price information, the survey was conducted by finding the average price per 3.3 square meters of these apartments at each point in time. In January 2004, the average price of a 30 Pyeong apartment in Seoul, which was 340 million won, increased about 4 times to 1.28 billion won in May. During the same period, the average wage for workers doubled from 19 million won to 36 million won. In 2004, if I had saved up for 18 years without spending a single penny, I could afford my own house. Cases of illegal distribution of Korean content in China are occurring one after another. According to Related Industries on the 19th, ENA's original content Strange Lawyer Wu Youngwoo is reported to be being distributed on dozens of illegal streaming sites in China under the title Wonderful Lawyer Wu Youngwoo. Wu Youngwoo is a drama depicting the survival of Wu Youngwoo, a new lawyer with autism spectrum disorder and genius at a large law firm. Wu Youngwoo also entered the domestic TOP2 on Netflix, and ranked first in the non-English speaking TV program category in the global top 10 as of the 4th to 10th. This popularity has also sparked interest in China. On Douban, the largest content review site in China, Youngwoo has a high rating of over 9 points. It has over 20,000 reviews and is full of good reviews. However, Netflix is in charge of overseas streaming of Youngwoo, but Netflix does not provide an official service in China. For this reason, the industry understands that Chinese viewers are watching content through illegal streaming sites, etc. The Korean embassy in China also revealed in a state audit in October last year that domestic content was illegally distributed on about 60 Chinese websites. In fact, Wu Youngwoo content is uploaded on dozens of illegal streaming sites in the country. Korean dramas that were popular in the past, such as Squid Game and Now at Our School, are also illegally distributed. Kakao announced on the 19th that it had started moving into a new office building Kakao Panjo Hideout in Bundang-gu, Songnam, Gyeonggi Province, on the 4th. Kakao's office building, located in the Yeoklands near Panjo Station, is equipped with a variety of facilities, including a sleeping room, exercise space, shower room, infirmary, and canteen. Theoretically, company homelessness is possible. Kakao employees can have a meeting or work anywhere in the new office building. Like a public phone box, Kakao has created meeting spaces by size, such as the focus room, a booth for one person, a meeting room for 4 to 20 people, a meeting room for 30 people, and a meeting room with a capacity of up to 200 people on a 150 Pyeong scale. There is also a separate conference room dedicated to the outside where you can hold separate meetings with external partners. There are cafes, book cafes, and outdoor terraces inside the company, so it is expected that free communication between employees will be possible. On the first basement floor, there is an in-house restaurant that can accommodate 1,000 people. The cafeteria is priced at 16,000 won, but only 4,000 won, excluding the company subsidy of 12,000 won, can be used by employees. It also plans to offer a vegan menu for employees who do not eat meat. He said that there was a high expectation among the employees who used expensive outdoor restaurants because there was no cafeteria. One of the popular welfare benefits among Kakao employees is the massage service. This service is a welfare service provided for employees who work on computers for a long time due to the nature of their IT work. If you make a reservation, you can change clothes in a newly prepared space in the basement of the new office building and receive services from professionals with nationally certified masseuse licenses. In addition, health counseling such as wound dressing, obesity and smoking cessation can be conducted in the nurse's health room. You can also take yoga and exercise classes at the Recovery Center, a 100 Pyeong space that includes a shower room. In addition, a daycare center that can accommodate up to 300 people and a separate sleeping and lactation room for pregnant women were built. It plans to provide a separate space for meditation and psychological counseling to support employees' stress relief. The government has decided to nurture 150,000 semiconductor talents over 10 years by loosening regulations, such as allowing universities to increase their quota through the establishment of new semiconductor-related departments. The qualification requirements for adjunct and visiting teachers in high-tech fields will be relaxed, and the number of semiconductor-related departments such as masters, bachelors, and vocational high schools will be increased by up to 5,700. In addition, it has decided to strengthen financial support for universities in non-metropolitan areas. On the 19th, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education Park Soon-ae announced the Semiconductor Talent Cultivation Plan through a joint briefing of related ministries including the Ministry of Strategy and Finance on the 19th. In the case of high-tech fields such as semiconductors, the government plans to increase the number of teachers as long as the teacher retention rate is met, regardless of the metropolitan area or non-metropolitan area. In addition, a large number of non-degree courses will be newly established in order to develop talents quickly. The Department of Vocational High Schools will be reorganized and 20 universities with excellent educational capabilities will be designated as semiconductor specialized colleges and graduate schools. In particular, the contents of increasing the quota of universities in the metropolitan area for the expansion of new semiconductor-related departments were included. President Yoon Suk-yeol, presiding over the cabinet meeting on the same day, emphasized that semiconductors are an asset of national security. On the afternoon of the 19th, Minister of the Interior and Safety Lee Sang-min, National Police Commissioner candidate Yoon Hee-jeon, and National Police Agency Security Director Hong Ki-hyun departed for Jeoj by helicopter. This is to inspect the Okpo shipyard in Jeoj, Gyeongnam, which is occupied by the subcontractor branch of Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering belonging to the Metal Workers Union of the KCTU. As the Minister of Public Administration and Security and the highest-ranking police officers went to Jeoj at the same time, there is an analysis that the input of public power was on the countdown. According to the police, candidate Yoon departed by helicopter from the Nodul Island heliport in Seoul with the Minister of the Interior and Safety around 12:07 p.m. on the same day. It is said that they will arrive at the Jeoj site in about 1 hour and 40 minutes. At the site, it was reported that the head of the Jeoj police station was planning to report directly to the Minister of the Interior and Safety Lee Sang-min and candidate Yoon on the status of the subcontracting branch's occupation of the shipbuilding dock at the shipyard. 7 union members of the Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering subcontracting branch affiliated with the Korean Federation of Trade Unions, KCTU, have been occupying Dock No. Among them, Mr. Y, the vice president of the subcontracting branch, is holding a protest with himself tied to a steel structure of about 1 square meter. It is said that 110 union members take turns guarding this front. As the construction work is halted due to their prolonged occupation, there is even a forecast that the damage to Daewoo Shipbuilding, where large-scale public funds have been invested, could increase by trillions. A government official said, about 10 trillion won of public funds are currently being invested in Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering. Due to this occupation, 280 billion won in losses in June alone, and 32 billion won in losses every day in July situation, he said. The official explained, the 4 ships in the workshop occupied by union members are not launching. With the visit of the Minister of the Interior and Safety and candidate Yoon as an opportunity, there is talk of whether the input of public power to the illegal strike site is on the countdown. Previously, the police had sent the 4th request for attendance to the branch and vice president of the subcontracting branch, asking them to attend by the 22nd on charges of obstruction of business. If they do not comply, an arrest warrant will be issued and a forced investigation will begin. President Yoon Suk-yeol also emphasized that illegal acts in the industrial field and in labor management relations should not be neglected or tolerated. When asked if he was thinking about injecting public power in relation to Daewoo Shipbuilding, President Yoon said, "I think that the people and the government have waited long enough." People's Power Acting Party representative and floor leader Kwon Song-dong said, "The government should not hesitate any longer and respond strictly to illegality in accordance with laws and principles." Meanwhile, the police are said to be struggling with the use of public power. This is because there is a risk of casualties due to the nature of the site, where there are a lot of heavy iron objects if public power is put in prematurely. For this reason, the police held a safety measure meeting and conducted on-site inspections the day before for a preliminary inspection of on-site risks. A police official said, "We plan to conduct a detailed safety examination of the occupied area." Korea is the only country among 38 OECD member countries with a total fertility rate of less than 1, representing the average number of births that a woman is expected to have in her lifetime. Compared to the average of the OECD member countries of 1.61 as of 2019, it is only half of the number. A bigger problem is Korea's steeply low fertility rate and aging population. After the government implemented the Basic Plan for Low Fertility and Aging Society in 2006, the government invested hundreds of trillions of dollars in financial resources. Is elusive with the world's fastest aging population, the cost of pension and welfare finance is increasing, and there are also elements of conflict between generations. It is pointed out that in order to overcome the current situation, where the cost due to the low birth rate and aging problem is increasing and the countermeasures are ineffective, the countermeasures should be converted to social and economic structural reform rather than a welfare problem, and an adaptation policy should be implemented in parallel with the low fertility mitigation policy. Successive. According to Statistics Korea's future population estimation from 2020 to 2070 on the 19th, the number of births in 2070 is expected to record 196,000, a decrease of nearly 80,000 from 275,000 in 2020. This is based on the intermediate level by demographic factors such as the fertility rate. As the number of deaths exceeds the number of births, the total population is expected to decrease from 51.84 million in 2020 to 37.66 million in 2070, and the working age population to 17.37 million. A sharp decline in the population leads to a decline in the labor supply, which inevitably lowers the potential growth rate in the mid to long term. Problems are also likely to occur in social and economic systems such as education, national defense, and industry that were formed at a time when the population was growing. On the afternoon of the 19th, Minister of Foreign Affairs Park Jin, who was on an official visit to Japan, visited Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida at the Prime Minister's residence in Tokyo and delivered President Yoon Suk-yeol's will to improve Korea-Japan relations. Minister Park visited Tokyo Prime Minister Kishida around 2:14 p.m. on the same day. Minister Park later met with reporters and introduced President Yoon's message. According to Minister Park, President Yoon said, "I met Prime Minister Kishida several times with the NATO summit in Spain as an opportunity, and I was convinced that Prime Minister Kishida could work together for the development of friendly and cooperative relations between Korea and Japan as a reliable partner," he said. I expect the flow of improvement and restoration of relations between the two countries will be accelerated by the foreign minister's visit to Japan, he said. President Yoon also said about the passing of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot and killed during an election campaign on the 8th, on behalf of the Korean government and people, I pray for the well-being of the deceased, and express my condolences and sorrows to the bereaved family of former Prime Minister Abe and the Japanese people. Prime Minister Kishida listened to the president's message with a very serious attitude, Park said. In addition, Prime Minister Kishida expressed his special gratitude for the condolences for the death of former Prime Minister Abe. Minister Park said, I told Prime Minister Kishida that I hope that the two leaders will meet again at a convenient time and have good conversations to build new Korea-Japan relations. He said, there is no confirmed schedule for the summit between the two countries, he said. It is reported that both Korea and Japan shared the need to resolve the issue before the Japanese company's domestic asset sale procedure is carried out in accordance with the judgment on compensation for forced labor. Minister Park arrived in Japan the day before and had a meeting with Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi for about 2.5 hours. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Minister Park said that he would make efforts to come up with a desirable solution before the judgment on forced labor is turned into cash. However, some point out that Japan's attitude is not forward-looking compared to Korea's efforts such as public-private councils, while sticking to the existing position that Korea should bring a solution. Some argue that Minister Park is putting himself at a disadvantage in the negotiations by explaining the deadline before cashing out. An official from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, the biggest factor is that the victims are elderly, and the second is that they will do it with a sense of speed in consideration of the impact on Korea-Japan relations if cash is realized. Isn't it possible that the two sides can seek a solution through mutual communication with the diplomatic authorities as the center? The most important thing is that we agree to solve the pending issues at an early stage for the improvement and development of bilateral relations, said Choi Young-sam, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Minister Park visited the LDP on the morning of the 19th after meeting with Fukushiro Nakaga, president of the Japan Oriental Medical Association, and paid tribute to former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was shot and died during a campaign for the House of Representatives on the 8th. Met with Kwok Jong-won, the former president of the Unification Church of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, who was called the second leader of the Unification Church following Sun Myung-moon, announced an official statement regarding the death of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Former Chairman Kwok held a press conference at a hotel in Taepyeong-aro, Yeonggu, Seoul on the 19th and announced his position on the death of former Japanese Prime Minister Abe. Former Chairman Kwok said, it has been revealed that the motive for the murder of the assassin was his mother's excessive donations to the Unification Church. He said. Former Chairman Kwok joined the Unification Church in 1958, and served as the first world president of the Unification Church and the president of the Unification Group, establishing himself as the second in command in the Unification Church. Earlier on the 8th, Tetsuya Yamagami, who was shot at former Prime Minister Abe while campaigning for the House of Representatives election in Nara City, Nara Prefecture, Japan, was accused of committing the crime because his mother donated about 1 billion won to the Unification Church and the family went bankrupt. Said. Afterwards, Yamagami, who harbored a grudge against the Unification Church, stated that he initially tried to kill the Unification Church leader, but because of difficult access, he killed former Prime Minister Abe, who he believed had ties to the Unification Church. Recently on YouTube, there has been a lot of controversy over the phenomenon that likes are displayed on videos that users have not watched and also appear on the viewing history list. According to the YouTube Customer Center community on the 20th, inquiries from users who complained of this phenomenon have continued since last May. They suspect personal information leakage or hacking, and claim that they changed the password of the Google account linked to YouTube, but the problem is not solved. Even if you look at the device where your Google account is logged in or access history, it is difficult to find any traces of personal information leakage. Google provides a device list of currently logged in devices, but users' common opinion is that there are no suspicious access records. Among users, they are expressing dissatisfaction when unwanted videos are left in the records. This is because YouTube recommends videos by analyzing users' tastes with an algorithm, which is inconvenient because even foreign videos that are not related to you are recommended. This phenomenon is also occurring abroad. Team YouTube, a YouTube creator support team, announced on its official Twitter on the 5th, we are investigating after receiving a report that random videos remain in the viewing record. Some users argue that the browser extension is the problem. It is said that extension programs that can be installed in Chrome or Microsoft Edge cause this phenomenon. Browser extensions have been pointed out as the cause of security problems such as malware infection before. In fact, after the deletion of the extension, there are posts that the phenomenon does not appear one after another, and it is being proposed as a solution among users. However, it is difficult to find a clear common ground because each user has a different extension program that they point to as a problem. Google is also aware that extensions can cause problems. Google said to the YouTube Customer Center, some Chrome extensions may subscribe to channels without the user's permission, and please report these programs as they violate the Chrome Web Store terms of service. However, this content was not disclosed by Google as the cause of this controversy, but is part of the previously posted information. It is also pointed out that it is difficult to confirm that the browser extension is the cause. An official from the security industry said, in order to point out the extension program as the cause, we need to check several variables one by one. It is necessary to investigate whether the hacker who has already accessed the leaked personal information has stopped briefly or whether there is a reason other than hacking. He said. If personal information is leaked and the hacker is already logged in, the same phenomenon can be repeated at any time even if the password is changed. It is important, he added. As the sixth pandemic of COVID-19 is in full swing, the number of reinfection cases in which people who have been infected with COVID-19 are tested again is increasing. 3 out of 100 new infections are reinfected. According to the Central Quarantine Countermeasures Headquarters on the 19th, the number of estimated reinfections by midnight on the 10th was 77,200, an increase of 3,379 from the figure of 73,821 as of midnight on July 3. This means that the number of reinfected cases occurred in the first week of July. The first week of July marks the start of the doubling of new confirmed cases of COVID-19. During this period, the proportion of presumed reinfection among new confirmed cases was 2.88%. The proportion of estimated reinfection among new confirmed cases was 0.59% in the first week of May, but rose to 1.22% in the first week of June a month later, 2.03% in the second week of June, 2.63% in the third week of June, and 2.94% in the fourth week of June. After continuing to increase to percent, it does not increase anymore and is in the low 2% range. The future is more of a problem. As the immunity of the person who was confirmed during the Omicron mutation epidemic earlier this year is expected to become weaker in the future, the number of presumed reinfection is expected to increase steeper. The duration of immunity after infection with COVID-19 is known to be from 3 to 6 months. Instead of reinstating high-intensity social distancing, the government and quarantine authorities have even drawn up a card that significantly increases the amount of compensation for adverse reactions to vaccines to encourage the fourth vaccination of high-risk groups. Combining the coverage of news on the 20th, some experts say that it is uncertain whether the vaccination rate can be raised just by increasing the range and amount of compensation for the fourth vaccination. According to the COVID-19 Vaccination Response Promotion Team, reservations for the fourth vaccination and the rate of vaccination are on the rise. The number of reservations for the fourth vaccination on the 11th and 17th was 245,540, more than double the 93,707 a week ago. Before the announcement of the expansion plan for the fourth inoculation on the 13th, the average number of inoculations per day did not exceed 10,000, but since the 13th, an average of 29,000 inoculations are being carried out per day. This is because, as the number of confirmed patients more than doubled from the previous week, the doubling phenomenon continued, and as the possibility of 100,000 confirmed cases a day increased, more people felt the need for vaccination. However, it is unclear how well the high-risk group will respond to the fourth vaccination in the absence of strong sanctions such as the quarantine pass vaccination certificate negative confirmation system at the time of the third vaccination. In the case of the elderly aged 60 and over, who were previously subject to the fourth vaccination, the cumulative number of the fourth vaccination was 4,65,558, which is 33.2% of the population. In particular, the fourth vaccination rate for those in their 60s is low at 22.9%. 25,571 people in their 50s who were vaccinated on the 18th, the first day that the fourth vaccination target was expanded to those in their 50s and those with underlying diseases over the age of 18, were counted, and the number of pre-orders was 196,538. The advance reservation rate for those in their 50s is 1.2% of the population and 5.2% of the target population. The government and quarantine authorities are emphasizing the importance of the fourth vaccination every day. Government figures such as President Yoon Suk-yeol, Prime Minister Han Deok-soo, and Second Vice Minister of Health and Welfare Lee Ki-il recently participated in the fourth vaccination. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, KCDC, Director Baek Kyung-ran once again explained the specific plan to expand damage compensation for adverse reactions to the COVID-19 vaccine. The main point is that the upper limit for medical expenses for diseases suspected of being related to vaccination will be raised from 30 million won to 50 million won, and the death benefit payment will be raised from 50 million won to 100 million won. A system was also newly established to pay 10 million won in compensation to those who died within 42 days after vaccination, even if the cause of death is unknown. On Wednesday, the 20th, it will be mostly cloudy in the central region and cloudy in the southern part and Jeju. It will be hot in most parts of the country due to the influence of high pressure near the Shandong Peninsula in China. In some areas, the sensible temperature rises by more than 33 degrees, and there is a possibility that a heat wave warning will be issued. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration on the 19th, the lowest temperature this morning is expected to be 20 to 25 degrees, and the highest temperature during the day is expected to be 28 to 33 degrees. The highest felt temperature will rise above 31 degrees Celsius in most parts of the country. In particular, Gyeongsang and Jeollanam-do regions are expected to experience a maximum temperature of 33 degrees or higher. An official from the Korea Meteorological Administration said, "There is a possibility of heat-related diseases, so please drink enough water and salt and refrain from strenuous outdoor activities as much as possible."